Hey y'all, listen up. Welcome to the Joyfuel Kindcast, a show dedicated to global joy. Joyfuel shines a light on people, kids, and grown-ups all around the world, doing things for kindness, creativity, and joy. Becky Suzik is our host, our friend, our partner for joy. She's also my mom. The Joyfuel Kindcast exists to increase global joy. Listeners are invited to open their hearts and minds to guest stories, to consider our own connection to kindness and creativity, and how we can use these as gateways to deepen our practice and experience of joy. Thanks for listening. I'm Colin, and this is my mom. Hello, Mother.
Thank you, Colin. Welcome, Joyfuelers, to episode 4 of the Joyfuel Kindcast. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you to a bright, kind-hearted soul who I am sure is about to inspire you. Liz Buechele works in the nonprofit sector and is the founder of the Smile Project, a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to spreading happiness through intentional acts of kindness and empowering young people to create kindness clubs in their communities. Liz has found an extraordinary way to combine her passions for writing, traveling, and meeting kind people, spreading joy and kindness through her daily social media posts, capturing where she finds happiness. Liz has been writing Happiness Is posts for 8 years and is about to share a post worthy of celebrating her 3,000th consecutive post for happiness. Liz has an infectious joie de vivre. I love saying that. And I know if you hear even one of her stories, you're going to feel uplifted. Hi, Liz.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Joyfuel Kindcast. I'm really excited and looking forward to our conversation and learning about the projects that you're involved with, specifically the Smile Project, with a special anniversary that's coming up for you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to talk about the Smile Project. It's one of my favorite things in the world, so I'm really excited for this conversation today.
First, maybe tell the story about how the Smile Project came to be.
Yeah, so the Smile Project is a nonprofit organization that aims to spread happiness through intentional acts of kindness. And we do that by empowering young people to start Spark clubs. Spark stands for Strengthening Positivity and Reinforcing Kindness. And those are just kindness clubs that can be started anywhere by anyone, anytime. And the idea behind those is that we get young people involved in social change and show them that they can make a difference as one person from where they are. And that, it doesn't have to be some grand, what we always think of when we think of world-changing people who speak to millions of people and who, cure diseases and who do these incredible radical things. But, changing the world can look simpler than that. It can be, being nice to a classmate or helping someone in need. And when we, think about changing the world and think on that grand scale, it can sometimes make us feel like we can't make a difference. And so then we don't do anything at all. And that's a really good way to give up the power that we do have to make a difference by focusing on the people and opportunities to be kind that surround us every day. So yeah, the Smile Project was kind of an accident though. I was always really passionate about wanting to make the world a better place, but I didn't know how to do it. And that, kind of led to that. A little bit of guilt and a little bit of, well, I'm one person, what can I do? Mm-hmm. And I was driving home from high school when I was 17 and had this very clear thought that wasn't just like, oh, I'm happy, it's unseasonably warm for November in Western Pennsylvania. I had my radio up and my windows down. That should have been the extent of that thought. It was just that this is a nice drive. But instead, I thought, day one, happiness is those perfect car rides where the radio just plays all the right songs. And kind of a unique way to think, people don't really think in weird day one type sentences like that. Mm-hmm. But like any 17-year-old in 2011 who thinks they have an idea that's going to change the world, I went home, logged on to our family shared computer on Facebook, posted that sentence, and then logged out, did my homework, and went to bed. Didn't really think much of it. And probably wouldn't have if it weren't for the next day. I was at the Costco in my hometown with my mom, and I had jumped up on the cart and was kind of gliding down the hill. And my mom was like, "You're going to hurt yourself or a car or something," typical like shenanigans of teenage life. And this older woman across the aisle kind of waved and smiled and was like, "Oh, don't worry, my husband does that." And so we kind of laughed and shared this sweet moment. And we got back in the car, and I was like, you know what, I should write about that. Still didn't really know what I was doing, but before I knew it, I had posted a week, I had posted a month, I had posted a year, I had posted 500 days. Every single day since November 9th, 2011, I have posted a happiness is status.
Wow.
And that kind of, it's really crazy to think about. And that's kind of what grew into the Smile Project as it is today. There was never any clear plan for myself of saying, I want to start a nonprofit about happiness or kindness. That just wasn't on my radar. I was, my senior year of high school, I was getting ready for college and thinking about what I wanted to do in the future and whatnot. And just the idea of running a nonprofit just was not on the radar whatsoever. And I just kind of stumbled into it through this experiment in writing down daily joy. And I mean, the simple act of that changed my life in radical ways of the way I see things and the way I think about the world. And so, to have been posting happinesses every day for that long is really most of my, adult life, all of my adult life has kind of been grown up through the lens of a happiness is. And so it's been a really, really impactful thing for me.
Wow, that's really amazing. Now, when you started in 2011, and what is the anniversary post that you have coming up? What number is it?
Yes, so January 25th, 2020 will be my 3,000th consecutive day of happiness is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and it's one of the most impactful things about it is when I started, I think I was about 2 weeks in when I thought I had covered everything. I think I was around day 13 when I was like, okay, I talked about soup, I talked about my cross country teammates, I talked about, falling asleep with rain hitting the window. I think I got it all, and because I just wasn't in that mindset at that point in my life to be looking for and seeking out and understanding joy in all of its forms. And those days where I was like, I can't think of anything to post, I don't want to post anything, those were probably pretty frequent in my first year. Yeah. And then a little bit less frequent in the second year, a little bit less, a little bit. And at this point, it's been over 8 years as we're having this conversation now. And I can't remember the last time that I was like, I can't think of anything. It's just become so ingrained in me that, it's not a question anymore of, will I find something good to post about today? It's like, oh no, there's something good. What do I want to pick of all these good things that have happened today? Wow. It totally shifts your mindset for everything.
It's really there's so much wisdom in that, because what you focus on intensifies and magnifies in your
absolutely
awareness. So your initial commitment was the beginner's mind and exploring that and thinking, oh, maybe I've talked about everything, but your commitment to say, okay, no, what's today? And then looking for that. And now coming up to your 3,000th post to say, well, now I have to choose every day, which thing should I share? Because that's really, there's just so much wisdom in that. If we practice that, or you hear about people talking about practicing gratitude and putting your awareness on what you're grateful for and how it kind of prospers. You kind of recognize all of the things that you're abundant for. At least that was my experience when I did a gratitude practice years ago. You pick a word for the year, and my word was gratitude. And from that, it really ignited. Everywhere I looked, I could see things that I became grateful for and recognize the abundance that I had and not the seeming deficit before. So I could see in your story how similar that is through using happiness, and just through that lens of looking at everything and where is the happiness, that now it's so abundant and all around you and everywhere you go, and the posts that you create and the things that you're involved with, you're propagating happiness too. So it's just like is love, embodied love.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that thank you for bringing up gratitude. That's something I've been really thinking about a lot more recently, is how the organization is called the Smile Project, and a lot of people know it because of the happiness is. But I think really happiness is just a gratitude post. It's just something that I'm grateful for. The format of day 1, day 12, day whatever happiness is the format I've used since November 9th, 2011. But it really is at the heart of it. It's just, what am I grateful for? Look at this beautiful thing. Look at this joy I get to see and experience in the world every day.
Now, when you think of the word happiness, what does that mean to you? Because I know if we look at happiness and joy, like, is there a difference in that to you, or how do you define happiness?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was getting ready to graduate from university, I spent about a year studying happiness from an academic standpoint. I'm not a psychology, I don't have that background at all, but I did read a lot of case studies and a lot of books about happiness and joy and how we define these things. And on a less academic note, obviously I've been defining happiness for over 8 years. Mm-hmm. And I think it really is ever evolving, and it comes down to how you choose to see things in a lot of ways. I always joke that some of the happinesses are silly, random ones about, doing, like, hanging out with my friends or my favorite food or, going on some adventure. But then there are a lot of very heartfelt and serious happinesses about sentimental moments or, things that have changed my life in indescribable ways. And it's hard to capture all of that into just one word. And I think, at the end of the day, what I'm probably defining is joy. But it's almost like all of these little happinesses build up into what is a really joyful life, if that makes sense.
It really does. And it's, to me, I recognize the presence that you bring to it, like your awareness and your commitment to that, how that has shaped something so beautiful and has created ripple effects for other people to be blessed by, because your commitment to where you're going to put your focus and where you're going to be present to the good things that are, the happiness that is, the joy that is, that, as opposed to, I think as human beings, we're really good at tracking the things that are going wrong and the things that are distressing. And that's why I through this radio program, I love to talk with people about joy and happiness, because through just talking about it, it beckons us to start to track it each day, each moment, because alongside all of the things that are so hard in life, joy does run parallel, I'm finding. It's becoming more, sometimes it's more of a practice for me than it is my default setting. It's something that I have to continually work on, is to look for that, especially when things are really in turmoil, and it's really challenging. And when you have moments like that in your life where things are going awry, and I recognize that you have things that you can go to share and to reflect on. Have you ever had moments where you just think, I know you said you couldn't find, you've been able to find something, but do you ever feel burdened by this, or overwhelmed by doing this?
That's a great question. And that's actually something that I've never been asked before, but I really appreciate that being asked, because absolutely, yes. Starting this at age 17, and then, that covers a lot of time in my life, from graduating high school, going to college, graduating college, moving to New York City, working my first, real job, and a lot of just life changes in that time of growing up. And just a lot of life changes in 3,000 days of, attending funerals and posting a happinesses, putting my dog down and making a happinesses that same day. And, things that have been really tough life experiences have happened at the same time. This joy was, as you said, running parallel to it. And there have absolutely been times, especially at the beginning, where I wanted to just be like, well, I don't know why everyone has to see me as this happinesses girl. There's things going on in my life too.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's a practice that you have to practice and build up. And just like anything else, I'm a runner, and, I couldn't just lace up shoes and run a marathon without training for it. And I think that's something we forget is with something like your mental health or your ability to see gratitude or the way you experience joy, that's also a muscle that has to be practiced. And it can be as simple as, it probably takes me 5 minutes to write down a happiness is, post it, and think about it and move on. It's not even, it's not a whole lot of time every day, but that strengthening that muscle through that simple act every day has made me overall a more resilient person, so that when those hard and challenging days come up, which, over the course of 8 years have been many, I feel better equipped to process the emotions that are hard and to not brush past them as in, oh, everything's fine, everything's, good vibes, we're great, everything's fine. Because I also don't like that. I really value with the Smile Project being as authentic as I can about like, yeah, this really horrible thing has happened today. But in spite of that, there is beauty. And in spite of this horrible heartache and pain or, world event that feels, traumatic and hard to understand, there is still good. It's like that Mr. Rogers quote, like look for the helpers.
Yes.
Look for the good. It's there even when it's a little bit hidden and even when it's a little bit hard to see.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so powerful. Over the last 3,000 days, there have been so many public tragedies. And I know there have been times for things that I've been working on online where I think, how can I post a post for joy? Because today, this really horrific thing happened. And yet joy is right alongside, and if we bow to it and give gratitude to it, and we nurture that, it somehow, it doesn't rejuvenate us, but it just makes us feel more alive and more present. And for me, it activates some more hope in myself for the next moments.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned with some of the things that, we hear in the news or we see even beyond our personal lives, but in the public life.
Yeah.
And that brought me back to, I remember when the Sandy Hook shooting happened, I had 3 people reach out to me and say like, how does this happen? What can we, and I was like, well, why are you asking me? And it wasn't, super close personal friends. It was 3 people who had, followed the Smile Project, and they said, what do we do? How can this happen? And that's when I kind of realized that like, I don't have, I'm not going to have the answers for some of these horrible things that happen. And just like I'm not going to be able to cure a disease or make sure every starving child has a meal or clean up the oceans or do any of these big things that, when I was young, I thought I had to do to make a difference. But if in that moment where people feel really hopeless and like there isn't anything good, if the Smile Project can provide something that says, I know this isn't okay right now, and it might not be okay for a while, but there is still something beautiful when we come out of all of this.
Yes.
There's still something beautiful in some small way. That is my contribution to making the world a happier and kinder place to be.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing about the reflection on when Sandy Hook happened and how people reached out to you. I'm wondering overall if there are other stories of shares that people have had with you and reactions, that things may have sparked other people to have similar posts and just things that you've noticed in the ripple effects of the work that you've been doing through these 3,000 posts.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things about the Smile Project is how accessible it is. And when I talk about it, I try to make it really, really clear. I was probably the least qualified person at age 17 to all of a sudden start, branding myself as a happiness expert. I just wasn't in that mindset, and I wasn't thinking like that. And it wasn't something that I was, actively doing or looking into at all. And, the only thing that sets me apart in that way from any of my peers was that I just decided to do one thing every single day for a really long time. And, it's nothing that anyone else listening to this couldn't do. I had an old notebook and I would just write down every single day one thing. And that is such a simple act that can have such a profound impact, that I encourage people to take up something like that. And oftentimes I will hear maybe a year, 2 years later, from someone that, was in the audience of a speaking engagement I did, who will say, "Oh, by the way, I just hit my 400th day of happiness." And I'll be like, "I didn't even know you were doing that," and they'll send me a picture of their notebook, or they'll tell me how they've started to do that. And that's, for me, that's the greatest gift of this whole thing. I knowing how much it has changed my life, and knowing the power that it has, and then to see other people be like, "Oh, I started doing this and I'm a different person now." I mean, that's beyond anything I could have ever imagined. So that's definitely one of those moments for me where, seeing other people think in terms of happinesses. Every now and then I'll get a message of, "Hey, I had this happinesses today." And, just knowing that people think and are more aware of that, or seek it out in some ways more so now, from being exposed to the Smile Project is something I don't take for granted. It's really special.
Wow, that's awesome. So that's a prescription from Dr. Liz here.
Yes.
That's wonderful to start by just grabbing an old book and just each day writing down one thing and doing that over time, and that's beautiful.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Now, the Smile Project, can you talk a little bit about the project aspect of the Smile Project?
Yeah, so that question is always fun because I get to talk about how we moved from just being a online inspiration hub to really going out into communities and making a bigger difference. I think I was 19 or 20, and I was giving a presentation at a leadership conference down in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I was talking about the Smile Project and kindness, and how posting these happinesses had changed my life and whatnot. And, it felt like a good talk. And afterwards I was packing up my bag, and a high school student came over to me and said, "I love what you're doing. How can I be involved?" And I looked at him, and I thought about this leadership conference and all of these inspired young people I was speaking to. And I said, "You can't." And I realized that was a missed opportunity. And so I went home that night and thought a lot about how to get people involved. It hadn't dawned on me at that point. Everything I was doing was just something I had started when I was 17 and in high school. And so the idea of other people wanting to get involved, the idea that other people wanted to help spread joy and kindness, it just had truly never crossed my mind until we had that conversation that maybe lasted 2 minutes. And I think about that a lot as well, about how we often underestimate our ability to make big changes, but truly everything that the Smile Project has become now stems from that conversation after that presentation. So I went home that night and I started creating what would grow into the SPARK program. So as I mentioned before, SPARK stands for Strengthening Positivity and Reinforcing Kindness. And those are kindness clubs that are started by students in high schools and colleges who just want to make their worlds a better place. And so it's a place for connection. It's a place for community. What every school does is kind of up to the leadership board of that school that year. So even in the course of a few years, what a club does might vary from year to year. We've had groups of students pass out free snacks during finals week. We've had them host free yoga classes for students to distress. We've had them raise money for other nonprofits or write letters to a nursing home. One of my favorite SPARK activities that multiple schools have done is they've written down either every name of every student in the senior class or of the entire school, depending on the school size. And then they write a compliment next to that person's name. So it would be like, Becky is always smiling and has a nice word to say, or something like that. And they hung those all over the school just to make people feel like they were seen and recognized. And it's really incredible to see what these students come up with every year. And it's also incredible to see the community that is built of just knowing that, whatever else is going on in their life and their day to day, they have this club where they are going to be surrounded by a bunch of other people who want to make their world a better place. And that community, I think, is just super valuable, especially at a young age.
How do the SPARK clubs get started?
It really, anyone can start one. So if you're listening and you're interested, let me know. We have a SPARK startup packet that we send to schools if they are interested in starting a club. And it really, most of the time, stems from students finding out about the Smile Project and being inspired, and then taking the initiative to go to their school and say, we need a kindness club here. Here's the group of people, and we're going to lead it, we're going to run it, and we're going to make this community a kinder place to be. So it's meant to be really student run. Youth empowerment is something that's very important to me, especially, as I said, I started this when I was 17, and I think we don't often give young people the credit they deserve of, you know, they want to make the world a better place, and they have everything within them to do it now. But I think often as a young person, you're kind of told, well, you should wait until you have a degree, or wait until this, or wait until that. And there's really no reason to wait. You know, you have everything inside you right now that you need to make a difference. It just comes down to, are you going to do it? And I like to think that these Spark Clubs are opportunities for people to really grow in that direction.
That's terrific. I'm going to include a link beneath our podcast for folks to click on that link and check out the Spark More Kindness on their campuses and at high schools too, you said. Did you say that?
Correct.
Yep.
High schools and colleges.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, on our program, we like to talk about kindness too. And I loved the ideas that you were sharing with the Spark Project and showing students kindness. Are there any projects that come to mind, particularly that ripple out kindness? Anything that you've been part of, or when you did that road trip, were there some kindnesses that you witnessed or were part of that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the road trip, I love talking about the road trip. So the basic synopsis is I love traveling, and I love talking to people and meeting people. And as the Smile Project continued to grow, I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to drive around the United States and just spread a whole lot of kindness? And that's what we did. So my best friend and I quit our jobs and rented a car and spent 2 months driving around the United States. And the goal was to prove that no matter where we live, what we look like, what we believe in, who we voted for, any of the other seemingly divisive attributes, we wanted to show that people are kind and human decency runs through all of us, and that people are generally good and want to help one another. And we were on the road for 2 months facilitating a big pay it forward project. So what that looks like is, in addition to, you know, doing simpler acts of kindness everywhere we went, the main project was the pay it forward. So for example, we worked with a group called Random Acts of Kind Trip in New Mexico, and they helped us collect a lot of animal supplies for a shelter. So we met with them, we hosted a little shelter drive, and took all the supplies to our next city, which was Arizona, and we dropped off a ton of supplies to a local animal shelter there: cat litter, dog toys, paper towels, everything you can imagine. And in exchange for all of those supplies, the staff at the shelter had written letters to veterans. So we took 50 really nice handwritten cards with us, and our next stop was in San Diego, and we worked with the veterans nonprofit there, the Travis Manion Foundation, and we passed out those letters to veterans. In exchange, the veterans had done a school supply drive. And so we did a little exchange there, and then drove on up to Los Angeles, where we went to the Skid Row Learning Center and dropped off all of the school supplies, and then worked with the students at the Learning Center to make really sweet, beautiful marker, crayon, glitter glue cards for the residents at Escatón Senior Living Center outside of Sacramento, which was our next stop. And so everywhere we went, we were trying to tie people and places and causes even together that might otherwise not think they have anything in common, in a place they might never visit, in a way of collaboration that they might never think of. And so,
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I can't help but wonder about the logistics before you arrived there. What does that look like to orchestrate a kindness propagation tour like that? I mean, do you contact you have the idea, well, we could go to this one place, and then at this place we could have them do this. Do you call them ahead of time? Do you co-create? Do you collaborate? Do you say, this is what we'd like to do for your organization? Is there something that you guys would want to do to gift it forward? Or what does that back end conversation look like for people who are listening who think, I'd like to do something like that, but how do you even begin?
Yeah, the answer is all of the above. The planning process was crazy. Originally I wanted to just volunteer and then feature a bunch of nonprofits. And I thought, what if we have car trouble and we're running late? And so then I thought, okay, plan B, we'll just do acts of kindness everywhere, like buying someone's coffee. But that seemed really monetarily focused, and I wanted it to be more accessible and focus more on the resources of time and talents to make a difference rather than financially. And so I got this idea in my head of this pay it forward map, which at the time seemed like a really simple idea until you begin building out a map. It's one thing to logistically plan even where you're going to camp every night, but then to add on top that you want to work with a nonprofit and you want to, not just work with them, but you are bringing them something and then asking something of them was really tricky. And some of it was, I am fortunate enough to be connected to quite a few nonprofits around the country. And so some I knew that I was going to be in that area and wanted to work with, and others was truly, I distinctly remember driving to Seattle and calling someone as we were on the way and saying, hey, here's what we're doing. And, it was a good phone call and they seemed really interested. And they said, well, when will you be here? And I said, tomorrow. And it worked, I was shocked at how open and willing everyone was to just help out. And they were so excited to be a part of it. And it goes back to, the whole, the answer is going to be no until you ask, essentially.
Right.
And just how open people were to help and how excited they were to be involved was really eye-opening to me in terms of planning something that big, because it was quite a bit of logistics to put that together.
What was the name of the tour?
So on social media, we use the hashtag Smile Project Road Trip, no spaces. That was kind of what we used the most to try to track ourselves. For fun, kind of like internally, we called it the Kindness Always Tour. But yeah, we had big yellow magnets on the side of our rental car, and we're still able to do those other acts of kindness of, buying someone's breakfast at a diner and then watching from afar as they were surprised with a free meal. We were able to do things like that as well. And it was just so cool when you're always looking for an opportunity to spread kindness.
Wow. How many days was that?
56.
56. Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And how did you fund that trip?
So we received a grant which covered pretty much everything. And then we also did a little bit of a personal fundraiser and had individual donors help us out a lot, which was really great because we were able to also then use additional funds to do those acts of kindness that were more monetary focused and, buy someone's coffee and things like that as well.
And who gifted you the grant?
The Pollination Project.
Yay, our friends at the Pollination Project.
Yes.
Yay, yes. I love that.
Yes, we love the Pollination Project.
That's awesome. Oh, wow. So 56 days of kindness always, and the idea of a pay it forward map. Is there an actual physical map that you created or a visual map that you created from that? Or is that poetic license, I guess, or
No, there is. I built out this little map before we left, and then on the first day we ended up taking a route that took us through West Virginia when we didn't think we would. And so I think West Virginia is not colored in, but it should be, or Maryland is. Or there's something the first day the map was already wrong, but we are going to create a new map with all the stars of the cities that we stayed in or we did a project in. It's
what year
remarkable.
Did you do the trip? What year was that?
That was the summer of 2018.
And is there going to be another tour, another trip?
think that's a strong possibility.
I want to go. I want to be on the stop. You need to come to North Carolina. I know everybody's probably saying that. You need to come to Australia. You need to come everywhere. Oh, that's fantastic.
I think that's a strong possibility.
Oh, that's terrific. Wow. It just like when I'm a huge believer that the more projects for kindness and the more simple, accessible things that we do and share for kindness, the more that generates other people creating acts of kindness. Because like you were saying, it's you can just do it. You don't have to, the answer is no until you ask, like you said. That's just
exactly.
So powerful. And your ability to communicate all of these things that you've been doing and online and having that consistency there's no way that you'll know the impact that you'll have, but just you'll get hints of it, I'm sure, and people responding to you and then sharing, their books for happiness. It's an immense amount of goodness. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And one thing that's really important to note, I should have mentioned this when I mentioned the road trip. We were seen as these little kindness crusaders who were going everywhere and trying to spread joy and make the, communities more connected across the country and whatnot. But we were on the receiving end of so much kindness on the course of the trip. I have a good friend in Texas who said, "Tell me where you're going to go in Texas, and I will make sure you have somewhere to stay every night that you're there." And he did. And we had somewhere to stay every night in Texas. And that's an example of a dear friend helping us out. But there was also a moment in South Dakota where I had never been to South Dakota prior, didn't know anyone. Through a kindness group, got connected to a woman named Katie who helped us with our project there. And I was meeting with a church group and talking about the Smile Project and the road trip. And then we were set to go back to the Badlands National Park and camp that night. But it was apparently very windy, which it's hard to forecast the weather when you're planning 56 days out. But, we had our camp and we had our tent, and I figured it'd be fine. And we're kind of wrapping up this Q&A session. And this woman says, "Oh, where are you guys staying tonight?" And I said, "Oh, we're going to camp tonight, and then we're driving to Omaha in the morning." And she said, No, that won't work. And she was already out of the room on her phone. And I kind of was like, okay, I don't know what that's about. But, we went back to, the rest of the group and, talking to the rest of the group. And she came back and said, "Okay, so I used to work at this campsite. They have an open cabin tonight. You're all set to go. They'll give you a hot breakfast in the morning and pack you lunch to go."
Oh, wow.
And that, I think about that moment quite often. We received so much kindness on the trip, but that was just, I never, I remember sitting there on a bar stool and like just tearing up instantly and being like, she just met me a half hour, if that, ago. Mm-hmm. And, she doesn't know anything. She never heard of the Smile Project, doesn't know me, we're not mutual friends. There's no reason she has to do any of this. We have a campsite, and yes, it's apparently going to storm, but that's not her problem, And I was thinking about all of these things, and without being asked, without us even mentioning it, she recognized that could be a situation, and then was able to hook us up to a place she used to work that just happened to have an open cabin for the night. And, she was right. We got there and they gave us a hot breakfast in the morning and packed us PB&Js for the road because the next day was a full driving day. And, it was just, I think about that a lot and it was that woman's birthday, it was a day all about her. And then it wasn't, it was her birthday, and she saw an opportunity to help someone that she didn't even know, who didn't even know they needed help because I didn't check the weather. And it was a really simple act of, she had this resource that could have helped us. And that just really, really, I remember that meaning a whole lot to me in that moment of an example of how, people want to help.
Yeah.
That's it. People just want to help.
Yeah. And then the fact that she just jumped in and took care of it, didn't ask for, didn't ask for anything leading into it, just saw an opportunity to bless you guys and jumped on it and made it happen. Like, instead of waiting for something to happen, making it happen. taking those actions.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. What a beautiful story. Wow.
Yeah.
And then when you eat peanut butter and jelly like that, it's like the best tasting peanut butter and jelly you've ever had.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We drove like 8 or 10 hours a night. That was one of our longest, because we didn't drive too much, but that was one of our longer drive days. And so that was real great to have lunch all ready for us in our cooler.
Wow. And how many miles did you end up doing on that trip?
Just under 13,000.
13,000 miles.
Yeah.
Over 56
Rental
days.
car place was not pleased.
Wow. Is there a link on your website for details about the project that I could share?
Absolutely. Yep. If you go to the Smile Project website under programs, the Smile Project Road Trip tab has lots of information about the trip and lots of pictures as well.
I'll post a link to the Smile Project Road Trip information that Liz had in the linkies below, so listeners can check out the trip that you had and see some beautiful pictures of the places and people that you visited on that 56-day journey through kindness and wow, all of those ripples. That's really fantastic. When on the topic of, we talked about happiness and joy, and we talked about kindness, and obviously behind all of this is your creative power, your creative ability, and the people that you've collaborated and co-created with to have all of these things ripple out in the world. And I wonder if you have any feelings. On our program we like to talk about kindness, creativity, and joy, and so I wonder if you have any feelings or thoughts about the power or the role that creativity plays in the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. I love creating just in general. My preferred medium with that is just writing. I love writing. I love talking to people, obviously. And the opportunity to do both of those with the Smile Project, I think, has been one of the biggest reasons that it's been able to grow as it has. I think, I always joke that my favorite things are writing, speaking, and connecting people. And I've been able to tailor the Smile Project to allow me to do those three things in a really sustainable way. I think if I had, built the Smile Project and then assigned myself to, do all of our branding and graphic design, that would have been a really easy and fast way for me to just hate it. That's not something that's not my area of expertise. It's not something I'm passionate about. It stresses me out. It's not how I want to create. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to bring on someone to, design our logo and our Spark Club logos. And that, helps both of us, because that is something our graphic designer, Jackie Schultz, is really passionate about. And she does an incredible job for us. Mm. On the other hand, leaning into what creatively I enjoy and makes sense for me and makes me feel really alive and happy is the writing aspect of it, is going to schools and talking to students, is having conversations like this about things I care about, And mm-hmm. So finding what makes the most sense for me creatively has really been important for just the sustainability of the work, and knowing that I don't have to do every aspect of everything. I can find the parts that make sense for me and then bring in someone else to help with the things that don't. Because I think a really quick way to burn yourself out really quickly is doing things that, someone else wants to do and will mm-hmm. have better success in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, are there any other stories you'd like to share? Anything else that comes?
I will share one story on this idea of everyday kindness that really stuck with me after the road trip. Because, the road trip, not very often do you quit your comfortable full-time job in the city that you love to spend 2 months living out of a rental car with your best friend. That's not, a normal weekend plan. And so, the kindness road trip was unbelievable in every aspect. I understand it's not sustainable and it's not, the most accessible thing. And so when the road trip ended, during the road trip, every single day, every single minute, we were looking for opportunities to be kind and to share joy. And when I got back from the road trip, I realized that, there still had to be ways for me to make the world a kinder place, just on a more, like an everyday level.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking a lot about I'm not going to, do a whole school supply drive every Tuesday, but what can I do to make a difference? And it got in my head a little bit of, are these simpler acts really making a difference? And to kind of combat that, I'm going to share a story from when I was living in New York City, or when I first moved to New York City in 2016. And I took the shuttle from Times Square to Grand Central Station every morning for work. And those are two of, the busier stations in Manhattan, Times Square and Grand Central. And I remember this particular time I was really struggling with a lot of things and just was really stressed and frustrated about a whole lot of issues. And I remember just trying to go to work, keep my head down and do my thing. And I was commuting and one of the shuttles was down, so there was a lot more traffic than usual. And people were kind of pushing to get onto the train. And I remember stepping back and just kind of thinking like, no rush. I'm early anyway. Like, I'll just get on the next shuttle. I'm not doing the pushing, shoving thing today, And so I kind of stepped back, and this older woman who was already on the train kind of just shifted slightly. And, in her shifting and moving her bag a little bit, there opened up this little human-sized space on the train. And she kind of smiled at me and did a little head nod.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got on the train, doors shut, went to Grand Central, went to work, and that was that. And that's the entire moment, right? I don't know her name. We didn't exchange information. There was no even other than like a little smile here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about that moment probably on a weekly basis, because I was in such a place that day of just not caring about anything and just being really upset and just like kind of checked out. And in that moment, in the middle of the busiest city in the country, this one person had done like something that takes 5 seconds to do, just shifting slightly and smiling. And in those two actions kind of show me that she saw me, she recognized me, and that I was going to be okay. And it sounds insane, to talk about this event from 3 or 4 years ago that had such a profound impact on me that I still bring it up in presentations. But truly that moment was an example to me of what everyday kindness can look like, and how it really doesn't have to be complicated. It's simply a matter of doing the right thing. And I'm certain that woman has not thought about that day since, and that is such a fascinating idea that you might think, oh, it was nothing. Oh, I just moved. I just let someone on the train. That's nothing,
Right.
But you don't know who is on the receiving end of that and what that might mean for them. And so I think about that a lot when people think you have to do something, radical and remarkable, will make all the headlines. But I mean, that truly is a profound moment in my life that no one will ever think about or talk about, and nor will that woman. And so I like to share that as an example of, you might not see the full circle and the full ripple of your kind act, but trust me when I'm saying it does absolutely make a difference.
Wow. That's so beautiful. That's so amazing. And like, that just kind of blows my mind, because it makes me think of all of the unmemorable things, the unmemorable kindnesses that have happened to each of us that have made us where we are right now. Like there are so many kindnesses that we stand on, that we live from, that we don't even remember, that we don't even know. And hopefully that if we can consciously choose to be part of those for other people, it really does make the world a better place. The tiniest little thing.
Absolutely.
It really does. That is so beautiful, Liz. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And it's certainly making me think of all of the little things that really add up to something really powerful and beautiful in our lives, the kindnesses. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being on our program and telling us about the projects that you're part of and the amazing happiness ripples and kindness ripples that you are creating in the world. It really is a beautiful thing. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun, and being able to reflect on happiness and kindness, especially as we're approaching day 3000, has been really special.
That's awesome. Is there anything that we can do to support you?
Yes, definitely check out our website is the-smile-project.com. I'm sure Becky will put it in the notes. But yeah, check out, we put blogs out twice a week. You can read every happiness is. Under the happiness is tab, you can search for them by a specific date, like your birthday or anniversary, or a day number, or specific keywords.
Super. I will include that link. And I have to ask, with all of this writing and your love of writing, will there be a book?
I hope so. I actually wrote a book after the road trip, and I'm working now on taking the steps to get that published.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll certainly share that good news when that becomes available, hopefully sooner than later, because we need more happiness in the world, and you certainly are helping to generate that. So, well, awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just a big thank you. Thank you. This has been a really fun time to spend with you today, and I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Liz. I'm so grateful too, and look forward to connecting with you again, and you take care.
Thank you so much, Becky. Thank you, everyone.
The Joyfuel theme music is the song Being Kind by Nemo Patel. Our show is produced and hosted by Becky Suzik. It is made possible from a global kindness grant from the Pollination Project and from generous listeners like you. If possible, please consider donating to help with all the show's costs. Visit www.joyfuel.org. We promise to put your gift to work for kindness, creativity, and joy.
Time and kindness will be all we can